Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday Live today. It is the third Tuesday, and Billy, who was on last month, decided to return to us this month so we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Of course, if you're just hopping on the live stream, be sure to let folks out in the network know that we are live. Anyway, Billy, what new things are going on in your part of the world? What are you seeing out there?
Oh man, all kinds of good stuff. Before we went live here, I was letting you know that I just let a little Dexter bull into a new paddock this morning, and he's out there tripping. So if you constantly see me doing this, um, you'll know the reasons why. I mean, this guy, I got him trained to hot fence. We do everything in accordance with permaculture, so every animal constantly moves. But there's a double-edged sword to that too. So if he gets out, I just don't want it to be some beer commercial where he's crashing through my high tunnel and all the other stuff out there.
Yeah, if you just run without telling us anything, we'll just assume that there's a bull problem.
Yeah.
Don't worry about us. Don't worry about how big is a Dexter compared to like a Highland cow, the long-haired Highlands.
Yeah, they're about half the size, but the beauty about them, I live in such rugged mountainous country, is that a Dexter, really a couple of reasons. Number one, they're as agile as a goat for the most part. They get about half the size of a typical cow. And then another cool, really awesome aspect of what they can do is, man, they can wipe out forage that nothing else will eat. So every animal I have here is kind of, I heard you can touch on it a little bit the other day, John, is I want hardy animals that are built for very tough conditions. My chickens, I'm 3 generations in raising my own flock that are adapted to this area. My sheep, same exact thing. Everybody goes on about how their sheep have this problem, that problem. Well, we get ones that are suited. Number one, taste light years better than any wool sheep. We deal with hair sheep.
Yep.
But they can also navigate some really nasty terrain, and they can eat things that other animals don't eat. Same thing with these Dexters. They're nimble. You'd be shocked at what you could see them forage. And at the same time, every single thing here, nothing's babied. We use Mark Shepard's stun techniques, which essentially stands for strategic, total, utter neglect. Not
Yeah.
completely, but same thing with pigs. We want animals that don't. I want animals just like the people I know. I want low maintenance animals. I want low maintenance people, and then that brings me to another point, and I may be going a little bit sideways here, but I think it fits based on some of the interactions I've had as of late. If I have a bull that's hitting people, I'm going to put him in the freezer. If I have a chicken that is constantly going nuts and scratching up people, guess what? In the freezer, you're going to go. I got a sheep jumping the fence, freezer. I got a pig that's violent, freezer. So if I won't put up with bad behavior in the animals that I raise, why on earth should I ever have to put up with it in what should be a high functioning human being?
Right. Yeah. Everybody's the people have this weird shit going on around them. And I have friends that I can be friends with that it doesn't require work to be friends with. Like, if you got some Goonie bird bullshit going on, you keep that over there. When you come here, you're here for a reason,
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's why we all have drama in our lives happen, right? And if we're constantly telling people every time we see them the latest drama that happens, that's part of the high maintenance thing. And that's where it's like, at some point you need to explain why you're not going to do the thing if people really want to know. I mean, I guess people are not necessarily entitled to know why, but they don't need to know every little thing that happens in your world that goes wrong, because stuff goes wrong every day for everybody. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Billy and I were talking before this. He's like, oh my goodness, I am working like crazy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, because you're running your own thing. Of course you are. And you feel like you're pulled in 19 directions. Well, I mean, nobody wants to hear the sordid details of what that looks like.
All the more reason why I really want John's opinion on this when it comes to people say, well, why don't you hire more help? Why can't you do this? Because honestly, if I can't line you out and leave you alone without you coming to me every 10 minutes, okay, I'm done this, or did I do this right?
Right.
Or, how do you deal with that, John? I mean, because honestly, I'm to the point now where I kind of need an army for a lot of the things that are going on here. But how do you tell me, as a guy that employs a lot more people than I do, how do you manage that?
Well, sometimes I don't. Sometimes you're going to catch me on the wrong day, and we're going to gut half the crew. Like a long time ago, we had a high dollar business analyst firm come in, watch a bunch of stuff, and they're like, "Look, you can hire 3 people to pick up the loss, or you can fire 1." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "If you fire 1 person, it will motivate the rest of them to do what needs to be done." And literally, in the programming world, like Spearco, I think hit on it the other day. In the programming world, they say that when you cut half of your workforce, you get twice as much work done. And we see that happen because the stragglers are dragging the others down, and the others are constantly having to fix the problems from them. But it's not only that, it's the negativity. So when you have like a cancer out there, it's exactly like you were saying. People come here and drive 2, 3, 4 hours to come here, and they want to, I'm going to come hang out and follow you around and talk to you. You better talk about something that's in my interest, or ask me questions that I can make you better in some manner. I don't need to know anything about your friends or your ex-wife or anything. If you meet a dude and he tells you in the first 30 minutes of your conversation some negative shit that happened, stay the fuck away from that guy. Like that dude is poisonous. And it's like I got a dude just walked in here from Texas last Monday. He's like, "I'm here to work." Dude's doing a good job. Like I'm pleased with him. I think that he will work. But I'd asked somebody, I'm like, "What's that dude's name?" And they're like, "I don't know." I go, "Yeah, I don't know their name for 90 days until people here have given that dude a nickname." And you really don't know who a person is until about 90 days. They all come in here with the motivation and desire. And usually they're running from something. A dude packs his car up in Alaska and comes in here. He's on the run. The military's looking for him. The ex-wife, he's got to get away, whatever it is. There's always something. And it's not always something bad. Like they are running from I can't stand being around the ex, I can't be in town with her. She doesn't want to get back. So I'm going to go start another life kind of thing. And they'll do what it takes to get the job. But oftentimes they don't do what it takes to keep the job, because you can't just come in here day one and do day one for the next 30 days. When I show you something, and it's watch one, do one, teach one, right? Just like starting IVs in the military and stuff. I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to show me how to do it. And then you're going to tell somebody else how to do it. Because people, it's not public speaking anymore. It's public communication. And people learn in different manners. Some read, learn better by reading, some by speaking. So I'm going to have him do that. And when I'm standing there and he can demonstrate that, I need to see that. But that's your bare minimum. Like when you operate at the level when the boss is standing there, that's your bare minimum. And when you make more money for the company and you take things off of me and do things that I have to do all the time, I'll give you more money for it. But you don't ever get to go back. Like when we give raises, hey, I'm going to give you more money, but you have to operate at the level you've been operating at for the last 30 days when I've decided to give you a raise. Because if you don't, I'm going to put you back down to where you were until you perform again. I need you here 40 hours a week. That's what you said you would come work. I've got people working 30 hours a week. Okay, then I'm going to pay you your other pay rate until you are back. You come work. That's the deal. And people like it. Some people don't like it. But in Tennessee, I have that ability to do that. I could never do that in California.
Yeah.
And the big thing is I moved here to work with 3 employees, not 20. So, and for the last 2 years, I've really set my life up in a manner that if the power went out tomorrow and we couldn't do what we're doing, if mail no longer ran, we would just move a bunch of shit out of this building and we'd be doing something completely different.
Yeah. Tori says she feels like she's getting dating advice from you too.
People ask, I see a lot of, and I think it's because I have a lot of young guys on my page when I do lives at night. Like, how do I meet girls? Or I've got this, my wife's not on board and she makes fun. And they like, I know people cringe when I say it, but I'm like, you married the wrong bitch. Like you picked the wrong one. Like Amanda and I, we broke up a bunch of times. We were apart a couple of years and it was a push and tug, right? But if you have to twist the arm, Nicole was in the same situation, right? Nicole, Homestead, what little I know, husband or dude that was around didn't want to do the Homestead thing. I'll bet there's 20 dudes right now. Nicole's probably, I'm not saying she's looking for a dude. I'm saying she's probably not. But I'll bet there's 20 dudes that would be more than happy to be partners with Nicole. You just have to find that one. And they're like, where do I find them? I'm like, I don't know. Go to a gardening club. There's probably a lot of cute girls and some older women at the gardening club. go do kayaking, go climbing. You have to go where there are people.
I think you need to go do the things you like, right?
Exactly.
Because if you go, let's say you're not a church going person and then you decide to start going to church to meet somebody, that's kind of disingenuous when you meet that person because they're thinking you're this different thing. I really think, and this is why I don't do online dating. If some dude I've never met hits me up on Facebook, I don't even answer. I just delete it because no good ever comes from that. It's way better if I meet somebody and it develops, that's great. And if it doesn't, then I will be alone on my homestead. And that is what it is, right? But if you don't get out, you're never going to meet anybody. That's my thought about that.
Well, also, it depends on, I agree, where you meet them. Like if I had a nickel for every soldier I knew that married strippers and then wondered why, she's out catting around, or, you're out in the field or you're deployed somewhere, and then you get back and then you hear all of these awful stories. Well, that might be a little bit of you might try over and try a different place. It probably helps, like you said a moment ago, it probably helps a great deal when you meet whoever it is you want to be with in some place that you already kind of share a little bit of interest. I'm a little bit different in that regard. I met my wife, I've been married for a long, long time, almost 3 decades. And I met her when we were both stationed at Fort Bragg. She was going to, where was she going? She was walking to Burger King, and I yelled out the window. I was half drunk. Back in those days, I used to drink. I'm coming from water skiing all day. And I yell out, "Hey, baby, slow that down," or whatever. She looks over like, say, "What?" Next thing I know, I go in there, and with that liquid courage, I probably said and did things, ordinarily I wouldn't. Now, it hasn't been always a straight line. It hasn't been up and down. But honestly, there was a lot of things we both knew, or at least she knew right from the get-go, that she wanted a person who wasn't going to be addicted to football games. She wanted a guy who wasn't going to be sitting in front of a TV. She wanted a guy who was going to have some love of outdoors. I wanted a woman who wasn't the typical, I'll put it this way, present company excluded, and also a lot of you ladies that are watching right now, all of the women I knew growing up were manipulative, conniving, and they were family members, many of them. And I honestly had this messed up worldview that this is the way all women were. And it took a long time for me to retrain and realize that my wife was she was rare. She came from one of those families that we put the funk and dysfunctional in my family, I mean, so I didn't know what a good person was. And there was a saying that a guy with a whole lot of sense once wrote, "A man that has not known many women can't truly appreciate the value of a good one." Mm. So, take that for what it's worth, but you go through it, you kissed a lot of frogs to get to a prince. Well, okay, hold on. A lot of princess, you know what I'm saying?
However that works for you.
Princes, y'all.
That was we should make that a t-shirt for you, really.
Yeah. I need to get John's wardrobe, man. Every time
I like the shirt he's got on today.
I'm saying there's one of these on the way, Nicole. This is this week's shirt. We do 100 every Monday. We release 120 pieces. They usually sell out that night typically. Yeah. So this is this week's. Come and take it. We put the stupid little mask and we made a place for a beak on him.
That is true. I hear the mask mandate died.
The mask mandate died. The killing and culling of chickens is rapidly spreading.
Yeah.
Where did it? Well, I hope it died because I'm about to get on a plane.
No, it died.
Yeah, it's dead.
Which airline are you flying?
Yesterday. Yeah, done.
Really?
Yeah.
It got struck down in a federal court. The TSA came out and said they're not going to enforce mask mandates, and 2 airlines announced never mind.
Okay.
And I think it was United and American. I don't know what the other ones are doing. And I didn't follow it that closely. That was all just because people told me stuff. So.
Oh, so this is really awesome.
That just made your day, didn't it?
So now I just get to be treated like a cold-blooded criminal when I go through and the TSC wants to pat me down.
Yeah.
You're sitting here you're looking at my bags and, feeling me up like I'm a stripper or something. But meanwhile, every bag that's being checked onto that plane underneath, 99% of which do not get checked. So
you can't carry
training, bro.
You can't have a pocket knife, but you can carry 14-inch knitting needles.
Ain't that something?
Hey, leave my knitting needles alone, John.
Yep.
Although my mom's gotten some hard times for metal ones at
Has she?
PSA.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, plastic will do the same job.
Good point. Good point. So you got to be thinking, what's your backup plan?
So Melody Lyons, you're scared for your birds. So you need to have that conversation right now. What are you going to do? Like, and I don't know, everything I've seen so far seems like legitimate. People are like, hey, we had a bird die. The next day we had 2. The next day we had 7. So we called the health department, and they're coming out literally with a 35-gallon trash can and whatever they're euthanizing those things with. I would assume they're probably using CO2 like out of a paintball tank or something, and they're just, asphyxiating them. That's how we killed rodents for, snakes forever, or dry ice or whatever. But the videos I've seen, they do look like these people had sick animals. Health department here, they don't have the manpower to come around and be like, hey, we need to check your chickens. They are using the PCR test. Who's testing that? I would assume that our local place here does not have a PCR testing machine. I don't really know what that looks like, but it's a knob. Like, you can make that damn thing say what you want it to say. So we've got birds outside, a lot of them. I've got birds stay in separate coops that do have open air exposure. And then I've got a ton of birds. I've got 100 over here, and I've got 100 up top, sequestered birds that have zero exposure to anything. So if it turns out this is a real thing, I've already got, I'm 90 days away probably from birds laying eggs again. And I've got another 100 Cornish cross on the way right now that haven't even hatched yet. I expect those to show up probably next week. And then we're bringing in, I think they're Cochins. We're bringing in this hybrid bird, and it produces 350 eggs a year, and it starts laying at 6 weeks. And I go, there's no way these birds start laying at 6 weeks. And I looked it up, and that's what it says. It says they start laying at 6 weeks. Your barred rocks, your normal birds, they're 250 eggs a year. These things are popping out 350. So my contingency tertiary plan is to also order those things and start growing them up just in case. And if nothing happens, then we'll, as food constricts and things get crazier, which looks like they are, then we'll be selling mature egg laying birds.
Yeah, that's great. I think if your birds get sick, you have a problem that you need to deal with, no matter if it's this avian flu or whatever they get sick with. And the decision you make is, do I treat it or do I let the strongest live? If you're going to let the strongest live, I have a tendency, if an animal's looking gimpy, to cull it. I didn't used to do that. When I first was raising chickens, I did all sorts of gymnastics to keep them alive. But now, unless I think I can treat it and there's a benefit to keeping that bird, it's gone, because the sick bird gets the other bird sick.
Yeah. And you don't use that for anything. Like, I didn't realize I had done it one day. We had a chicken that had died, and I put it up in the basket of the 4-wheeler. And then later in the video, we're chopping up a bunch of meat to put in the freeze dryer. And they're like, I'm like, no, it's not the same bird.
I go back to what Kerry Mullis, to hit on what John said a moment ago. The guy who invented the PCR test said it is wholly inadequate for every method in which we're using it right now. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, every polecat really that told me that there's a bird flu out there and that it's really awful has been told to me by prostitute profligate liars. So that's number two. Number three, because I do live in something, I go right back to that stun method, strategic total utter neglect. And that's where I hit on what Nicole just said a moment ago, where if that animal, it's my motto out here is get loose or get lost. Either you're going to work out or you ain't. If you ain't tough enough to make it, I'll put it this way. What percentage, if we get a bird flu, I don't recall what it is exactly, but if you get a bird flu, there's going to be some that do survive. Well, you know what that tells me is that they are extraordinary. And I probably want to propagate those birds. Hopefully I still got a rooster left in the bunch. But also, I think this goes back to what John said. I can't remember if it was in my broadcast or another one before then, where, you know what, when I got them outside, I'm looking right now, it just happens to be sunny as I'm looking out here hoping to God this bull doesn't start to trip. But anyway, as I'm looking out here, I see sunlight, I see wind. There was rain just last night, all of which cleanse the environment. That is the universal antidote for a lot of this stuff is sunlight. It will cleanse 99.99. And then listen to everything they told us about a virus. It's getting that time of year where viruses usually don't do all that well in these kinds of weather conditions. So if I take all of those things and I put them together, my likelihood of believing what I'm told by these lying polecat prostitutes is really not something I'm likely to believe. Now, I'm more likely to believe the latest thing from like CF Industries basically just announced the other day that Union Pacific Railroad, now this is tangible stuff. Union Pacific Railroad for the foreseeable future is not going to be shipping fertilizer, nitrogen-based fertilizer, and that's how most of it is shipped. Now, that's a story that came from the prostitutes. I can probably believe because I can't verify it. I can't verify. I don't see birds dropping out of the sky. I don't see these crows who are over there protecting my birds from birds of prey. That's another story unto itself, but I don't see those guys dropping out of the sky. I had a dead one the other day because I was screwing around. It was my fault, and a skunk got in there and killed one of my birds. Well, that's on me, but I haven't seen anything. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm just saying I've seen zero evidence, and everything I think I know has been told to me by profligate liars.
Well, what they're saying right now is that there's 2 types of bird flu going around in the United States, and one of them passes to human beings. I don't know.
And that's why we need to kill the birds?
Well, they're culling all the birds too. This is about protecting big chicken. You keep hearing about all these chicken farms closing down. You don't see any videos of them slaughtering all these chickens, these millions of chickens in these chicken farms. You keep hearing it. The big thing, I think, I was listening to a guy, and I didn't track any of this down or nothing, but he says he has a bunch of his viewers typing in saying Iowa, Oklahoma, all the corn fields, they're not planting corn. Everything's planting soy right now. And corn, he went down this list of what corn was in, and corn is in everything. And then we're reducing our fuel supplies, but the answer is we're going to divert a bunch more corn for ethanol.
Yeah, ethanol. If you're not growing corn, that doesn't do anything.
So all of your animals eat corn. Not all of our animals, but most animals that people eat out of the grocery store eat corn. Feminine supplies all have cornstarch in them. The gum on envelopes all have corn in them. I don't know when the last time I licked an envelope was. It was all stuff I'm like, oh, that doesn't affect me. But for the normal human being, it does affect them. All your sweeteners, all your non-sugar sweet, everything's got corn in it. Everything. And we're not planting any corn.
The powdered coffee creamer is corn and soy.
Yeah, everything. And I heard ethanol, by the time you have a gallon of ethanol in a container, you have utilized the equivalent in energy to 8 gallons of diesel. So it's not just seeding the corn and harvesting the corn and the glyphosate that they spray. You know, I think a lot of people don't know. I like to tell them your wheat and your corn and all these grains and stuff that you consume out of a package mostly, they spray Roundup on that shit literally like days before they cut it and put it in the silos. If you test any of these kids' cereals, they have like 100 times the normal allowance for glyphosate in them. So if you're feeding your kids any packaged food, it all, like if it comes from corn or wheat, that shit's all that they spray it to dry it out with glyphosate. And if you don't know what that is, that's Roundup. And there's all kinds of glyphosate lawsuits right now going on over people's health being destroyed by it.
You know, it's funny, John, for the years and years, I was told I was, excuse me, I had gluten issues. Well, it turns out that if I eat anything that had glyphosate sprayed on it, yes, I do have a friggin' gluten issue.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, if I eat organic, like right now, I was telling you guys the other day, I eat some of this organic turkey red wheat, for example, the other day that my friend Justin just milled. Ate that stuff, 9 times out of 10, when I eat gluten, store-bought gluten, or anything that has gluten in it, or it could even be the gluten-free stuff, man, I'm clogged up like a Lincoln Tunnel at rush hour. Or it's going the other way, man, where I can't get there quick enough. But lo and behold, when I eat that stuff that doesn't have that junk on there, no problem, no reaction, no nothing. Yeah. So it's just like you said, it's not just that. Good night, man. From the air we breathe, from the water they're giving us, to the food we eat. I mean, it's a wonder any of us are still alive. So being that we are so hard to kill, I'm going to try as best I can to keep doing what I can to produce as much as I can right here without outside inputs. So when they do have things where nitrogen-based fertilizers shut down, yes, like you said, John, no matter what, I don't care who you are, if you operate in this society, whether you know it or not, you can be as green as you want to be. You are consuming corn, if not in some of the byproducts of the cut products you use, if nothing else, it's in your gas tank by and large. So that's where a lot of corn's going right now in our gas tank. We're driving our food essentially. Despite all that, it's going to affect every last one of us no matter what, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And that is trying to produce as much as I can. So my basic goal is to get to the point where the only thing I need at the grocery store is toilet paper and aluminum foil, but I'm not there yet, but that's the goal.
Yeah. And people also don't know, like aluminum foil, you can buy big restaurant supply house aluminum foil and it's huge. Like it's super heavy and it will last you years. We buy butcher paper that I think is 36 inches tall. And it's, I don't know. It's this, I mean, you can barely move it. It's so big and it's not expensive when you buy it in bulk like that. Same with cling wrap. I buy a 14-inch and we get a 12-inch. And if you have Sam's Club or Costco, there's a restaurant supply aisle there. But if you go to Gordon Food Services, GFS, you don't have to have a membership to shop there. And the prices are less. Like everybody talks about these wholesale warehouses. Costco's not wholesale. You need to shop where the restaurants shop. And when you start doing that, same with toilet paper. People spend a fortune on toilet paper. You can buy 12-inch commercial rolls of toilet paper like they use in the gas station. You get 3 times as much toilet paper for 30% less than you pay for the normal toilet paper. And you might not be accustomed to it, but it's a lot of money that you're literally wiping poop on,
Well, man, I need some of that toilet paper, man. You'd swear my son has teeth in his butt. Man, I got to get some of that industrial stuff. Dude, I don't know what it is. We're having wipe his butt with some of this mullein I got growing out here.
So ours were always the girls, right? So we actually spent about 6 months. And if you've ever been, in the military, a lot of times, depending where you are, you have your roll of toilet paper. In jail, you have a roll of toilet paper. So what we were doing is we were taking the rolls of toilet paper, writing the date on the inside, and giving it to each kid. And when the toilet paper was gone, they had to bring that roll back. And lo and behold, all of a sudden the toilet paper started lasting a lot longer because you knew who the culprit was, basically. But we took all of those, put them in buckets, and then averaged out our use. So we had a real actual what we need to, toilet paper for 6 months, year, 3 years. And that's why we did it. But it did definitely change it. If you have accountability to it, it will completely change what's happening.
Who knew, man? I had no idea. That's a great idea. Wow.
How about Spanish goats? You ever mess with Spanish goats?
No, I try to avoid goats as much as I can these days. And the biggest reason why is, and I think I even heard Jack Spirko talk about it before, because I'm not a masochist. And I know other people have goats and they have great things, but I can get the same benefit from a legit St. Croix hair sheep. They eat just about everything the goat eats, but they taste light years better. In fact, I butchered a lot of animals in my life, and the best tasting meat on planet Earth, in my opinion, and believe me, I've had Kobe beef, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It ain't got nothing on St. Croix ram or a St. Croix young lamb any day of the week. If I were to do a blind taste test with you, 9 out of 10 people would probably pick that St. Croix. And guess what? They eat just about everything a goat eats, but they don't have that gamey. I don't mind the gamey flavor. I just don't like goat gamey flavor. So yeah, I kind of phase goats out and I replace them with sheep that will do a goat's job.
I like me a good goat curry, actually.
So I'll check out the St. Croix rams. I say Spanish goat because they don't have to be vaccinated, and they'll almost 100% forage. Like they were leaving them on islands and just coming back 10 years later, and they'll populate. They'll continue to breed, but they're not as big. It's not a 400-pound boar goat buck. They're a much smaller. They're smaller, but you're still a 125-pound goat. But you don't have any, like, they will eat anything. Like if you can't get feed, they will eat whatever is there.
See, John, you hit something that's key right there. So just like we were talking about from the very beginning, those St. Croix and those Katahdin sheep, basically any hair variety of sheep, will do exactly what you're talking about. They eat hearty. The meat is flavorful, but you will notice a common trend for every animal. Like if you ever go to Greg Judy's school, you're going to learn some really awesome stuff. He has a grazing school that's second to none. Here's what you find out is that just like everything else in our food system in America, it's been bastardized. We think the bigger the cow, the more meat we can get, that we take it to market. But guess what? You got to shoot them cows up every month with antibiotics to keep them alive. Same thing with our hair sheep. I'm sorry, not hair sheep, but our wool sheep. Same exact thing. They're going to get hoof rot. They're going to have all kinds of health problems unless you keep them on the antibiotics. But guess what? Their counterpart, these hair sheep, just like you said about that goat, are considerably smaller, but they're 10 times hardier. If you have good mineral out there, the only thing that was going to kill them is either a wild animal or yourself. Even when it comes down to chickens, what the ideal bird is, depending on the system you run in, they're going to tell you that they have these certain features, but they're polar opposite to the ideal bird for the system I run. I want a medium-sized bird. I want a dual-purpose bird. I want a bird that lays well and also is good in the pot. I want a bird that's going to be tender. And I also need one that isn't going to easily succumb to bird flu or any other pestilence these evil people want to put into the food supply. But universally, we find out that the most adequate animals, whether it's sheep, goat, pigs, it doesn't matter. The most adequate for your homestead is the polar opposite of what everybody is telling you out there. It isn't bigger is better. It's typically the smaller, whether it's a Dexter cow, whether it's a hair sheep, whether it's you pick any breed, pick anything. And I guarantee you the most hardy of all of them will be the smaller version of it. And they're more parasite resistant, the whole 9 yards. So you hit it right out of the park with that. You just basically stated permaculture in a nutshell and it basically culminates everything we said up to this point in this conversation, in that I want low maintenance people and I want low maintenance animals. I want animals I can put out there. They eat these solar collectors in the yard that everybody calls grass, and I can give them that, nothing else. I don't have to fatten them on grain. And guess what? I put them in the freezer. It's fantastic. And then before I do that, if I'm really lucky, maybe I would have thought this thing through and made sure they had a couple of twins before I decided to put them in the freezer.
Yeah.
I think Zebu cows are supposed to be pretty rugged also.
Yeah. If you want one that's really, really grass adapted, the best probably in the world, at least in America, is going to be the South Pole. And that's also, they're about the size of it. And, okay, just proved another good point there. The South Pole cow is a red-looking cow, and it is adapted to grass genetics completely. The only downside is you're not going to get this cow ready to market in 1 year. It's going to take, and it should take, 28 months. But when you taste the meat, it's flavorful. You got zero input costs, zero. You can't beat that. How many other farmers can say that? But like you said, John, we're picking out animals that are going to be the best on the homestead, that have honestly a friendly disposition, and at the end of the day require very, very little. That's what we want in every single food system we have out there. That's why all of us, especially in these times, should be leaning away from annual food systems and into perennial food systems that feed me whether I'm there or not.
Somebody had asked, how much land do you need with sheep?
Okay. Good question. It doesn't matter really the animal. At the end of the day, it's all good. You're going to get tired of hearing this answer. But it all depends. It depends on whether or not you have good forage out there. It depends on your topography. It depends on so many different factors. Do you have other animals in there? I mean, there was a family out in California that produced in LA, I believe. The
DeVays.
Is that who they were? Producing 6,000 pounds of food that they had to sell.
Yeah.
On a third of an acre. So it can be done, and it can be done easily. So it's kind of a loaded question. You can't really answer how much land do you need. All I know is that even in a city lot, you would be shocked at how sufficient you become. Also, going back to that community thing, maybe not your next neighbor, maybe the neighbor down the street. Let's say you can grow 2 fruit trees in your city lot. Well, let's say little Billy Bubba down the street here, he can grow 2 fruit trees. Okay. And let's say Sally, another couple of doors down, she can grow a couple more fruit trees. Well, if you all had different cultivars, and if you all scheduled them at different times of the year, just in 3 families alone, you could produce more than enough food than 3 typical households could possibly eat. If we're talking about if all those trees were to produce. And it's not even utilizing all your own thing. You're just saying, okay, I got a bushel of apples here. We're going to divide them up between us. Oh, your orange crop, not oranges, because you're not going to find them growing in the same place. But let's say your pears came in. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so then we divvy that up. I mean, it requires a certain degree of, working with one another. But even no matter how small the lot, you can make this happen. You really can.
Yeah, we're adding 10 or 12 here. I have 3.2 acres, but I have a neighbor who's never up here who has a pasture, and I made an arrangement with him. So if it's too much for here, which that many probably will be for my property, I can then rotate them over there and then rotate them back. It's amazing what you can find when you start talking to your neighbors.
Well, let's not also forget some of those areas where years ago I decided if you look at my earliest YouTube videos, I called them permaculture at work. I was guerrilla farming in every place I possibly could. And I was doing it years before I ever had a YouTube channel. And at a VA hospital, prime example, they have tons and tons of land out there. I'm putting up clandestine food forests out there when I lived in Kansas at Leavenworth. I mean, there's fruit trees all over Leavenworth, VA, but you'd never know it. I planted them. I put them there. You could take public land. Like Joel Salatin said, there's people growing weed in national parks. Nobody ever thought about growing tomatoes. I mean, there's all kinds of open spots where, for example, you could be growing sweet potatoes right under the nose of every passerby, and they would think it was some sort of ground cover. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it'd be a vine. Yeah, they think it's kudzu.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all kinds of ways, and I'm trying to do that even more. I even had the design of a chicken tractor that was disguised like a transformer. And I was going to put it right there in open sight, knowing that nobody would even notice or pay attention to it. So we got to start thinking outside the box. If you do live in an apartment or you do live in a small backyard or whatever the case may be, you better find some clandestine ways to grow some food.
Oh, I know somebody who used to guerrilla plant in his city park.
I think there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I'll just put a tree here and then I'll kind of take care of it every time I walk my dog. And eventually that tree gives me fruit and I didn't have to have the land.
So 30-day review said in North Dakota, I think that's where he is.
Yeah.
Can't have quail. Allowed versus able. I promise you that somebody in North Dakota has quail. Nobody's going to know you have quail. They don't make any sound.
Right.
I got 50 of them right out the door here, and you would never know they were there unless you walked up. They go in little cubbies. You can put them in your garage. You can put them in your shed. Nobody will know they're there. I promise you, if you go to order some quail from one of the hatchery places or even off Amazon, I think they're on Amazon. You can get them on eBay too. They're just going to mail them to you. Nobody's going to know that those are quail versus chickens. And the people at the post office, they're not going to say nothing about it. He also said that he Googled it, and you only need 15 square feet to keep a sheep or a goat. But that goat's going to be standing in shit up to its elbow. You need to move them around. Like I had goats in a pen that was probably 50 by 100, and we had maybe a dozen in there. And it was just a soupy, muddy wreck. And it started on rock. It started literally on just clay gravel. And within a couple months, it was wrecked between the hay we were throwing in there and them just shitting all over the place, pooping. So then we put them, and we would go back and forth. So they'd be a month over here and then a month over here. And this would all grow up, and they would come in, and within 2 days, it was scalped. And then we'd leave them there for a couple of weeks, and then we'd just move them around. Sometimes we'd just let them out in the main property. Can you? Yeah. Should you? It'll be you will smell it. You will definitely smell when you have animals confined to small spaces like that. You will not like the outcome of it.
Well, the only solution for a lot of that is doing what's called a deep bedding method. If they have to be static, then you're going to be using a ton of carbon to cover that up.
Yep.
That's the only way to get around that. And is it a viable way to do things? Absolutely. But honestly, man, I mean, I am beyond, I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way, but y'all, I am beyond asking permission for anything. I am a free living soul. I'm tired. I will not live by another person's by your leave. I'm not going to live my life. I lived it for too long that way. And I'm not living it anymore. If you tell me it's illegal to grow tomatoes over here, take me to jail. Send my mail to the county jail. You tell me I can't put, or, you know, people reach out to me all the time saying, I live in an HOA. Okay, sorry about your bad luck, but I'm not asking permission. Maybe get a couple of your neighbors together. Maybe get out of there in the first place. I don't care what it is. If it's an unjust law, you tell me I can't feed the homeless, I got news for you. I'm doing it. There are things in this world that I should have access to that the founding fathers would have agreed that I have access to. You know what? It's a federal, you're calling it a federal national park. Okay, that means I got a piece of it, you know? I'm going to go out there. I'm going to go out there. If I want to graze it clandestinely, I will. You know what? You could easily sneak in a couple of little pigs. You could easily sneak in a couple of little pigs in a place nobody would ever know about it. You could even get breeds that really don't make a whole lot of noise. I don't even care, y'all. I mean, am I the only one that is thinking this way? We are at a consequential time in America where, you know, there are a certain group of people that can do whatever they want, and those of us that can't, I'm beyond asking permission for things that should be my right to do as a free thinking, breathing human being.
Yeah, if I wanted to raise quail and my state required a license, I would not apply for that license. I have no idea how anybody know I had them.
This is a good example. Bad guys, most people, if you come in contact with 100 people through the day, there are 25 of those people that would kill you if it wasn't for repercussions that they might get caught and go to jail. And our community is so pussified and worried about asking permission to grow things or have things. Just wait. We're talking to the majority of the population nothing tries to eat them. They've never lived in a place where somebody wants to kill them. They've never lived in a place where something will just grab you as you come out the door. They've never had to move water. They've never had to, literally, the definition of a third world country, in a third world country, most countries in the world spend 50% of their life hauling water or hauling fuel to try to make fire or cook things so that they don't get sick from it. Just imagine what's going to happen. You have predators and you have prey. And everybody needs to stop being prey. When we think that way, we are that much closer to prey. And people act like they're at the water hole, like something, and that's a healthy response to have. Look around. That's how you should always be at the gas station. You should act as though somebody will kill you while you're pumping your gas, because it happens all the time. But to be worried about what you can and can't do, and I'm not saying that's, you know, the North Dakota dude. I'm not saying he's not doing it or he should or whatever. But we're programmed. You guys are programmed, and highly programmed. And it's the same thing. You get in all these groups and you put photos up and people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that or you can't do that. So everybody's so fucking worried policing their own that they're not doing anything themselves.
Yeah, there's no faster way to get a lot of discouragement than ask on the internet, hey, what do you think of this idea to rent out my freeze dryer or something like that? And it's like the food police come
and they don't even
tell you that you can't do it in your state or whatever. It's illegal. You're going to kill somebody. And I'm thinking, if I haven't killed myself yet with my freeze dryer, I'm probably not going to kill you. This
is the kind of nonsense I'm talking about where, you know, I got to sit here. I need a license. Well, how does it go? What is it? You teach a man to fish, you know, I forget how it goes. Anyway, when you teach the man to fish, he needs to go get a fishing license. No, I don't think so. How is it I can sit here and I can go down and, okay, John, you and I can open up a roadside cafe. We're going to need a long list of all these things we're supposed to have in order before we start business, because we need to make sure the food's safe. But the same two people can have an open potluck at a park with 100 people each bringing a covered dish, who even knows where some of that, but that's perfectly legal. But you and I can't just open up a roadside. I'm not asking permission, y'all. Hey, speaking of which, I need permission to go because
Yeah, head out.
15 minutes late from where I'm supposed to be right now. It's
Go, man, go.
to hang out with y'all.
Be safe.
Thanks for popping in. We'll talk to you next month, hopefully.
All righty.
So I say that all the time. You know, I can stand at the end of the driveway down here at the highway, which in Tennessee, a highway is a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
This is a highway. And I can give away chicken breast. I can have a cooler out there, free chicken breast, free eggs. But the minute I sell it, the FDA wants to get involved, and I can no longer process it here. I now have to take the bird somewhere and pay $6 a bird to have them processed and get a date and book a date. Good luck. Go try to get some chickens processed today. Just if you don't know, call up and go, hey, when's the next time I can bring in 100 chickens and have them processed? I think you're going to be very surprised. But it's fine if you give it away. That's how you know it's bullshit. It's about them. It's about a fine. It's the same thing. It's when you're on the way to work and you see highway patrol. I know I'm going to offend some cops when they listen to this, but you guys are fucking harassing the working man. That's what you're doing. Yeager said when he was law enforcement, when he was policing, he said, I could pull over anybody going over 5 miles an hour, or I could pull over dudes doing 25 miles an hour. And he said I could write the exact same amount of tickets at 25 miles an hour than I could at 5 miles an hour. That's all that is. Yeah. Why aren't them dudes out there when people aren't on the way to? I mean, and I'm not saying they don't do good. I'm not saying they don't do real shit. But all that stuff, when it's all just harassing the working man. It's the same thing with the war on drugs. You want to stop drugs? They don't want to stop drugs. They're making way too much money putting people in prison for drug charges. And then if you can pay a fee, then it's legal for a cost. You know, it's all about money. It's just revenue is the whole thing.
Yeah, I just got an email from my processor right before this. Their prices just went up about 15%.
Oh, I'll bet they're going to go up
more.
That's not the first one.
Yeah, but one thing you may not know, John, in Tennessee, if you want to be legit with your chicken processing, you're allowed to process on your own property and sell from your property direct to consumer up to 3,000 birds.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is something, unless it's changed in the last year. I was shocked.
I don't want to sell 5, much less 3,000.
I don't want to process 3,000 on my property.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't. I love growing. The smell doesn't bother me. You know, we got a big 3-bin sink out here, a big commercial sink that we use, and we've got it piped over. So at the end of the day, the few feathers that make it out of the plucker, you know, they're there. We just go by with a torch. We just burn them in place with a big weed dragon torch. We just incinerate them.
That's one way to deal with it. I ended up breaking them for months here after one of our workshops.
Yeah, like
there's more feathers in the ground.
We do them right on the gravel. We just torch them, and then we just pick it up. It comes up in a sheet, and we just put it in the dumpster.
Oh, that's awesome.
Super crispy, like burnt cheese. Somebody I saw earlier asked about rabbits. Your 2 typical meat rabbits are going to be California and New Zealand. That's going to be your most common. You're going to see people throw out other kinds of things. I see giant Flemish a lot. That's a really neat, giant-looking rabbit.
We have one of those here.
And everything I read is that they take longer to grow. So your pound of feed to pound of meat conversion, it doesn't work mathematically. And it's a heavier bone structure also. So a lot of the weight of the rabbit is also that.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. Oh, I was going to say, that's what we're learning with the bigger meat rabbits is it's bigger, but the bones are bigger. And so you might as well just raise a smaller, more resilient rabbit. So, and the industry is, you know, New Zealand. And if they're using the fur for jackets or, you know, fur trade, it's always going to be a pure white rabbit. I've got 80 some rabbits right now. And I kill one every day and feed to dogs. And I still have that many. I just put about 20 of them out on grass, cute little baby bunnies. And then we keep them on grass. And when I say grass, people think, oh, grass, it's white clover, it's red clover, it's plot forage. I overseed as we drag these tractors. So they're eating a lot of different things. We still give them pellets. They say when you put baby bunnies out on grass, they'll get bloat. I haven't had problems with it. If you do see bloat, if it's looking lethargic, if the bunny looks sick and its belly's distended, it's probably bloat. You can knock that out with oatmeal. You can just give them oatmeal. They'll gobble that down. That'll take care of some of that bloat. I haven't had the issues with it, but
just get rabbits. Right now with the fertilizer, the way it's going and stuff, you're going to need something to feed that garden, and that rabbit manure can go straight in that garden.
Yeah, last week on my podcast, I was talking about rabbits and that they can be 100% grass, because I've talked to people who are doing it that are 100% grass. I got a lot of pushback on that. And so I dug a little bit deeper and talked to the people I know doing 100% grass. And I was shortcutting. So like you said, it's not 100% grass. There's fescue, there's clover, there's other things growing in the mix. But what I also learned is they are able to transition them to 100% grass. But the genetics, right about the time they get that dialed in, the genetics, they start getting, two-headed rabbits, or they start getting some weird genetics. And so it's not sustainable for them. But if they add just a little bit of pellet, it takes care of the whole thing. So I'm going to be updating that on my Friday podcast too, just because I was like, that's what we're working on here. And to find that out is good to know.
I think people get stuck on that word grass too, right?
Yeah.
What is, maybe we should just call it forage feed.
Forage.
Because you could pull willow, you could pull poplar, you could pull mulberry and put in there, and they'll gobble that down. I've got dandelions growing up to my waist, right? I've got huge, and I pull them all the time. And I just take cuttings and scrap out of the garden, and we just put it in the cages. I'll take a head of broccoli, and people are like, oh my God, you can't, rabbits don't eat, roots. Rabbits only eat leaves. It's the craziest shit. But
rabbits eat food.
I have some super healthy rabbits, and I don't have any rabbit problems. None.
Right. Okay, here's one from Tori from earlier. I was waiting because I knew Billy was going to bolt on us. What do you suggest I do to build my new duck pen on my own? She's newly single and doesn't have a partner to help.
So how big do you want to make your duck pen? The first thing we did when we came on this property, we had no fencing. So we took cattle panels. Cattle panels are 14 feet long, and they're, what are they, 4 feet tall, I think. So T-post. We did a T-post setter, which I got 15 staples in my head from. I was on a hill, glanced, and it came off, hit the T-post. So be aware, like T-post setter, set your T-posts, and then we just zip tied. We zip tied our cattle panels in place. We ran, when one came this way, we left like a 4-foot opening, put a T-post here, and we just bought a 4-foot gate, and we used 2 pieces of chain and some little like snap links, but they screw on, thread on, and we just use those. And I've even on my bird pen up top where my ducks are, I think it's just big, heavy zip ties. So you don't even have to have a wooden post to screw the screws in for the gate. Just chain, zip ties. We held everything together here with zip ties for probably 5 years, to include goats. Like, we kept goats in places. T-post on the outside, panel on the inside, zip tied them in place. They're pushing. That's why if you've ever watched any of my on the compound videos, I'm picking up zip ties all over the place. Employees would go out and, we'd change panels around, and they just got thrown on the ground.
Oh, geez.
And today I pick up 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 zip ties every single day now, today.
So note to self, don't throw zip ties on the ground at John's at Self-Reliance Festival.
and I'm like, maybe an animal will eat this or whatever. I've never had any problems with it. It's never been an issue. They just leave them there. We over mulch so heavy with wood chips.
Yeah.
So you'll go a year and not see them. And then as the wood chips break down and the animals, they come back up. They dig them up.
Tactical says John's mistake was not using biodegradable zip ties.
Yeah. I used that's one of the things. If I'm at Home Depot, Lowe's, Tractor Supply, I think every time I buy them, right? Imagine if you had to make this decking screw. I wouldn't want to have to figure out how to make, and guys are like, oh, you use nails. But I buy zip ties in 500 bags. I buy screws. I buy 40 pounds of screws at a time. And every time I do, I'm like, man, imagine if you had to make this.
Oh, yeah. If somebody did, like, to come up with that concept of the screw, somebody had to make it. And they probably started by making one.
Yeah, they say
they didn't machine that and have an assembly line going.
They say they used to burn down old, shacks and stuff to harvest the nails.
Yeah. You can still do that. I actually have some old nails here from a cabin we had.
Yeah.
It was like they're square. Those are kind of fun.
A rabbit is a pet until things get hard. So everything is a pet, and it's an expensive pet if you are not using it, right? So those rabbits, we use the manure all the time. We use them to feed to dogs. If we ever need to convert them into meat, we can eat them, right? But all these, I have a bunch of chickens. I probably got 12 chickens up in the duck pen up there that are old, like 4-year-old birds. So out of 12 birds, I'm getting 2, maybe 3 eggs a day. And I actually said that into the camera as I was videoing today and said, these are pets. They're expensive pets. We need to kill them and feed them to the dogs or whatever, because if they're not producing, then you have to look at everything in math. Everything is pound of feed to pound of protein conversion.
Yeah. Steve says the first screws were wooden. I had no idea. That's super interesting.
Well,
it makes sense.
And the Amish still put stuff together with no metal hardware, right? They still use all the pegs and stuff.
Absolutely. So Julia says rabbits will reach harvest rate faster than chickens and produce more meat per animal with the right breed.
Okay, what's that breed, Julia? That would be California and New Zealand, right?
Well, the same person observed that grain elevators are having trouble getting grains.
Yeah. And yes, and so the rabbits, but you're back to that rabbit thing. You have to kill that rabbit. You have to skin that rabbit. You have to make meat out of it. For people just starting Homestead, and even if you're doing other, chickens are so damn easy. I'll bet I brought in 70 eggs today. And I brought in probably 48 yesterday from the storm the night before because it was darker. So, I mean, it's just so simple. I walked in the kitchen and Amanda had a bunch of meatloaf pans out on the counter this morning or this afternoon before lunch and had eggs in them. I go, what are you doing with all these? And she had cracked them all.
Yeah.
Busted them up. We have a hand blender and put them in Ziploc bags and they're sitting in the fridge. I go, what are you doing with them? She goes, well, because I broke down 12 rotisserie chickens. I did 6 on Sunday and 6 yesterday. So we're going to freeze dry the rotisserie chickens. And then immediately after that, 120 eggs are going in the freeze dryer. We have eggs just coming out of our ears.
That's that time of year right now.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. So my spring workshop's in a week and Mom was asking me, do you want to serve the fresh eggs first? And I said, well, we packaged some up and froze them in bags that we can use the sous vide to cook them. And I said, well, let's use those first. And then if there are any eggs left at the end of the workshop, I'm totally freeze drying them.
So I see Steve Hall said by selective breeding, my female New Zealand's average 10 per litter. Nice. So I saw that breeding rats. Okay. We used to feed rats dog food. We get the cheapest junk dog food from Tractor Supply. And I want to say it was like $6 a 50-pound bag. It was big bags, cheap junk. And we would get litters, but when we went to a Harlan laboratory, for people that don't know, Harlan Laboratory owns the patent on white lab mice. All white lab mice are Harlan Laboratory lab mice. So when we started feeding them that, our litters actually tripled in size. It was a higher protein feed. I have noticed I feed co-op pellet to our rabbits. When I feed the Tractor Supply Premier, it's made by Purina, I think. It's got a pretty bunny on there, and it's a white and red bag. I think it has red on the top and bottom and white in the middle. That feed costs considerably more, but my litters are twice the size of the cheap co-op feed. So I'm sure it has something to do with feed. I'm sure it has something to do with genetics. Just like when I have a female rabbit, I'm to the point right now when I have a newer female and she doesn't take care of her babies the second time, we don't ever give her a third time.
Yeah, we've got a rabbit that didn't get pregnant last time. We're trying to decide if it's her fault or his fault. So she's getting another chance and then with a different buck.
You have another male?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening right now. So if she fails again, then it's her, not him. She's been pregnant once though. So
we know she works.
She did work. It is what it is. I mean, that's how it works on a farm or a homestead. And it's kind of, if you grow up in the city, you're just programmed differently on animals they're all pets and your first interaction with animals are pets. And so then it's sometimes hard to hear what it's really like because we can't just have a bunch of freeloaders here. Freeloaders are just taking from the land. I need something that's part of the cycle. So
Coot Club, what's up, man? Cash Only Jay, he's close to me here. He said 20 dozen eggs, same thing. $40 buys. I buy every 10 to 12 weeks.
Wow, that's a really good price. I would never sell eggs that cheap.
Yeah, no, I see people on our local Facebook group. I need some eggs, and they're $2 a dozen. I would throw them against the wall for fun before I'd sell them for $2 a dozen. I saw somebody asking, anybody have laying hen, egg laying hens that are already laying? And people are like, yeah, I'll take $5 a piece. I pay 15 2 years ago. 15 was the going rate. It's 25 now. And I can sell every bird I have that lays eggs for $25 a piece. It blows my mind that people are out there. Yeah, I'll take $5 a piece for them. They obviously were not the ones buying. It wasn't their credit card or debit card that was being run when they bought that feed. They have no concept of what it costs to bring that bird. Yeah,
none at all. Steve says, do y'all think GMO feed is an issue? I'm not breeding show rabbits, just food.
I don't even know if what I feed is GMO or not.
I don't know. I don't know what's in rabbit food, so I can't answer if it's even going to have GMO ingredients. That would mean you have grain in there. And then the question, I'm more worried about, is it soy or not personally? So GMO corn, I'm less worried about. I don't feed it to my animals because my customers are very worried about it. But soy is the thing I'm trying to avoid because it messes with your hormones. And I don't want to mess with my hormones in my food. I certainly don't want it finding its way through the chicken into the egg or the duck into the egg where it will concentrate an estrogen lookalike. And that can lead to all sorts of problems, right? That's why we call them soy boys. So for me, it's the soy, and GMO foods have a tendency to be based in soy. That's just my opinion. I've got nothing more beyond the opinion there.
Yeah, I don't know if the rabbit feed we're feeding is GMO or not. I have no idea.
I mean, what's in rabbit food is the question.
I'm not eating them. My thought is, and to be fully, transparent, we bring in 25 pounds of chicken breast every weekend from Sam's Club. It's $2 a pound. It's Tyson. I'm sure it's GMO. We're not eating that shit out of the freeze dryer. But if the time comes to eat that stuff that we freeze dried, we ain't worried about the GMO stuff at that point in the world.
Yeah. So it looks like they put vegetable protein meals in there, which probably means soy.
There you go.
So that would be something to think about.
Pellet feed is almost all soy, somebody said.
Yeah, and I know. So Michael says, I'm pretty sure alfalfa is GMO. I'm not worried about the alfalfa. It's a leaf. So that's just me personally.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, pellet feed is almost all soy. I was just pulling it up. So that's
that rabbit pellet feed is almost all soy. That's what they're saying.
Well, anytime you see vegetable protein meal, it's soy. Okay. It's based on soybean. It's very. I mean, they have wheat in it too, but it's very unlikely that the protein is coming from the wheat. It's coming from the soy, unless you strategically go get like peanut soy or peanut protein based foods, which I just found a new source for in Alabama. I'm kind of excited about yesterday. Yeah.
Survival tip. What's up, man? Coot Club said he just got his appointment for testosterone. For guys that don't know, hormone replacement therapy is a pretty big thing. You don't have any special operations units out there in the world right now that are not using, like the SEALs have a trailer that come around with the platoons that work hormone levels and stuff. Be aware, it is a big, giant business right now. For people that don't know, one of the most profitable things within a doctor's office is Botox, injecting lips and stuff with Botox. The profit margin is enormous in it. And the profit margin is good on hormone replacement therapy as well. A lot of doctors will prescribe it, but they just kind of go with the trend, right? What they've heard. You can get on testosterone and up your estrogen levels. There are things you need to do to counter the estrogen levels. I had a dude come work that was working for me, good friend of mine, went to a doctor in Nashville. They put him on testosterone, and he went backwards, not forwards, because his levels weren't enough. He went and saw another doctor. They doubled his testosterone, and within a week, he went literally from becoming a woman to turning into a man. It's your estrogen level. So if you get on that you need to educate yourself a little bit. It's your free testosterone. Your doctor will tell you all these numbers and it'll sound great. None of that means shit. It's the free testosterone level. And if your doctor's not having that conversation with you, you need a different doctor. And a lot of it is just, it's like a check cashing place now. They're popped up everywhere. You can walk in and they'll get your blood work. If anybody needs hormone replacement, if they need to have that conversation, I actually send out a postcard with every single order we send out for Optimize You. And you can do that. You go get blood taken at any LabCorp, and they have clinics all over the place. But it's well worth doing. It literally, my test levels, I keep them very high. I perform better. People are constantly like, how do you sleep 4.5 hours a night? That's how. It's economy of sleep. When I hit the pillow, I literally use the fuel in my tank to 100%. When my head hits the pillow, I go to sleep, and I sleep. I actually sleep through the night. So, and a lot of that has to do with hormones.
Wow, cool. So what do you think about these grain shortages they're talking about, John?
Well, I think it's by design. I think all of this, well, we know it's by design. They've been telling they're going to telegraph the punch, right? Why would they do that? I literally think that it's crazy people, like madmen, right? Like the evil, I'm going to shoot a laser at the moon kind of like crazy people. And I think that they get together in Davos. I think that they all come together and they're like, I'm going to say, we're going to release this little virus and we're going to make everybody have to wear masks. And the other dude's like, well, I'll up you one. I'm going to tell them they got to screw a light bulb into their butthole and we'll see which ones go. And it's like almost like they have a bet between each other as to who can pull it off. Absolutely by design, orchestrated through the fuel. The whole shutting down the pipeline that was coming through Canada for the fuel, right? Who bought all the railways 2 years, 6 months before that happened? Who did that? Like they didn't. Do you think Warren Buffett just miraculously bought all those railways, or do you think Warren Buffett had something to do or was in the know that they were going to shut those pipelines down? I mean, that's a whole mess in itself, who and why. But the fact is, they're doing it. I believe, and I feel like the things that we are physically seeing happen right now in the grocery store was from things that took place 6 months ago. So as you hear more and more crazy things are happening, just forecast and imagine what it's going to look like 6 months from now. And at what point, like you go to the grocery store, we go to the grocery store and kind of like take the temperature of the water. And what I mean by that is go look at your pasta aisle. When we're out of town, we go to Walmart and we go to Sam's Club. We don't even buy anything. I just want to see what they look like, whether they're stocked or not. There's no pasta anywhere. We were in Sam's Club in Jackson, Tennessee, Saturday or Sunday, I don't remember which, stocked to the roof. Like you couldn't put another pallet of nothing in there. They didn't have any pasta. They didn't have any 50-pound bags of rice. I haven't seen a 50-pound bag of rice in that place in almost a year now. So those are the inexpensive foods. Wait till those amplify. Your gas costs more. It costs you more to go work. Everything costs you more. Your insurance is up. Your health insurance, everything is up except your income. Your income is not up. Even when you got a raise, you didn't get enough raise to negate the cost elevation. And you hear unemployment numbers, right? When they give you the unemployment numbers every month, that's not how many people are on unemployment. That's how many new people filed for unemployment that month. That doesn't count all the other people. Like they don't realize that. When you hear inflation, are you aware that inflation does not include any of your normal reoccurring bills? It doesn't include your mortgage or your rent. It doesn't include your food. It doesn't include your fuel. So when they talk about inflation rate, it doesn't include any of those main things that most citizens spend over 50% of their income on.
Yeah, it's interesting to me on unemployment. The big thing that they lose track of is the people who have decided just not to work.
Yeah. Well,
if they're not on unemployment, if they don't file it, they're not counted. And so you'll think, gosh, I know a lot of people out of work, but the unemployment numbers are low. Why is that? Well, they're not getting that check anymore. So because you get that check for 6 months and it's done. I guess. I mean, I've never gotten that check, but
the Obama administration ran a census. and they would run them as contractors. So they would hire them every Monday, and then they would terminate them. Their contract was a 5-day contract. And then you would come back in and fill paperwork out on Monday, and that's how they said less people were unemployed. That's how they would run that, to show new jobs, to create new jobs. It's because they were rehiring everybody over and over on those contracts. So it's all for show. Whatever they tell you, no matter which side you're on, they're all playing the same game.
Okay, I love this comment. So I did a podcast Monday about supply chain issues and the things going on, and that we're asking the wrong questions of ourselves in response to that. The first question people are asking out of fear is, how do I store more food? How can I get more rice and beans? Those sorts of things, which, okay, that'll get you for a bit. But the question is, how can you source it locally? And what new skills do you need to learn, right? So Kit's saying, I make a lot of my own pasta now. It's easier than I thought it would be. And it's a good use for duck eggs. And you don't care if there's pasta or not in the stores. You're going to care if there's flour at some point, but that's great. You've got a skill, and you've thought about how you can replenish it. And if you're getting duck eggs, I imagine you're not getting those at the grocery store either. Most people don't. They do sell them, but they're hard to find. Yeah.
I want people to still have that conversation, though. If you present a problem, you should present an answer, a solution, right? And Nicole's very, very good at that. But I want people, I use that. I don't eat pasta. I have pasta maybe once a month, right? We eat rice a couple times a month. But I want to have that conversation, because that is the barometer. That's taking that temperature, because what's the next step, right? When poor people, and when we say poor people, I mean, that could be anybody, but when typically people eating top ramen and living off, the 99-cent menu, when they can't afford that stuff, they're going to start stealing things. It's going to lead to other things. And that's why I want to continue to have that conversation. But yeah, there's absolutely, I have those conversations all the time, but I don't eat a lot of rice. I don't eat pasta. I don't eat bread, right? But I have a ton of that stuff stored. It's still there. You can still go get it. And like Billy says, how many calories are in a bag of rice? You can literally feed a person off a 50-pound bag of rice, caloric wise, for a year, I think is what he said. It's an enormous number. So it's good. It's
not going to be a very fun year, John.
It's not. And I'm not going to be eating that. People like I have a ton of stuff, and we have a ton of people that we do business with. Coot Club said there's not enough people in Tennessee. And that made me think back to what Nicole was saying about the unemployment, right? You have all these people, because we go out to a lot. I go to a lot of restaurants when we go out of town, and we go in and the service is terrible. The people aren't there. The ribeye steak is definitely coming from someplace else. It is not the same steak that you used to get. But I asked that question too. I'm like, okay, so all these people had unemployment. 50% of the workforce didn't go to work. 50% of your restaurants in the United States are shut down and never coming back. So all those servers that worked at those restaurants, in theory, should have come over to these other remaining restaurants, right? But you go out there and the restaurant's at 30% capacity because they don't have labor. So 70% of the tables in most restaurants are empty. That's the most expensive thing as a restaurant. My chef Josh would tell me all the time, he's like, the most expensive thing in a restaurant is an empty seat. The most profitable thing in a restaurant is chicken. So the question is, all these people are off unemployment. Where are they? Because they're damn sure not at work. So is the answer that maybe a lot of them died? I really wonder that with all the people, because who typically was going to take the shot, right? And you seen tons of detrimental things. What is that death rate? Because we hear absolutely insane numbers, but nobody's talking mainstream about it. But where is that workforce at? How are they paying their rent? Like, where are these people?
Yeah, no idea. It's an interesting question. I think if you look at the small businesses that are still here, we hear that they're struggling with employees, but the ones that are doing best aren't. And so there's this like shift that happened where the entry-level employees that were the ones that weren't going to stay around either, those are the people that have disappeared, as near as I can tell.
I need 20 more people.
Yeah.
We don't have them. Most of the people on the other side of this wall that are here have worked for me for over a decade right now. I don't know where they're at.
Were you able to get them before the pandemic though?
Yeah, they were here before. That's absolutely.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. They worked for me for over 10 years.
No,
Yeah.
I mean the 20 people you need.
No.
Yeah.
They're not. Yeah, we would have them come in.
Yeah.
They're just like, I don't know where they went.
Yeah. I've never, since moving to Tennessee, I had a hard time finding employees.
So Tom says maybe they retired. No, we're talking 18 to 30-year-old people demographic. They did not retire. They never went to work. They never joined the labor force. Where are they? Amazon is bringing in heavy jets, big jets from South and Central America. They're bringing them in to their hubs, and they're paying illegal. They're not legal immigrants. I don't know the legality of Amazon actually bringing them in. It sounds like it's a path to citizenship in some manner, but they are bringing planes in every single day, and they're paying those people $15 an hour, and they're working 5, 10 hour. I think it was 5, 10 or 14-hour shifts. It was a big number, but they're not bringing in U.S. They can't get U.S. citizens to work. They're bringing them in from other countries right now. There's tons of talk about it, so much so that a lot of the unions are pushing the Biden administration to push for unions within Amazon, and Amazon's fighting it back. But just keep that in your head. You'll see it someplace in the next couple days, weeks. You will see this be talked about. Interesting.
Awesome. Well, we've been on a little over an hour. You want to wrap up?
Sure.
Final words.
Saw a report. The death rate of working age people increased by 40%. So what he's talking about is life insurance policies. You have several different life insurance companies have come out and said that in the last, I believe it was 11 months. I remember thinking that was a weird number. In the last 11 months, and it's 64 years of age, it's 18 to 64 years of age, and it's males. And the death rate has increased 40% in the last 11 months, 64 years of age and lower. And they said that for 40, 50 years, it was almost a plateau. They could almost just bet on that, and it was a solid, safe bet. And then all of a sudden, this year, or the last 12, 11 months, it just spiked 40% growth rate.
Yeah, I'd heard about that one too.
On their payouts.
That is an indication, according to mainstream media, that COVID's killing a lot of people.
Yeah,
that was the articles I was reading.
Yeah, that's look at this. Don't pull us out and burn us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right,
All
guys.
right.
So I do a live feed every night at 9:00. If you don't know who I am or whatever, join in and you'll get a better feel. We have a conversation as long as you guys want to go about whatever you want to talk about. We also show some of the products and stuff that we make here while we do that live feed.
Yeah, John and I have teamed up to do an event several times a year called Self-Reliance Festival. That's at selfreliancefestival.com. The next one is June 11th and 12th in Camden, Tennessee. And tickets are selling like mad. The cool thing about this event is you can learn very getting started sorts of skills to very advanced skills, but it's for makers. It's for people who want to own their lives, take control of their lives, meet other people like you, and make those connections. Get your tickets at selfreliancefestival.com. The day before, on June 10th, is a pork processing workshop that is almost sold out right now, that Billy Bond, who was on earlier, is going to be teaching. That guy can teach animal butchery better than anybody I've seen. So you definitely want to hop on that if you've never cut up an animal. And if you want to follow what I do, just go to livingfreeintennessee.com. I've got an audio podcast there. Thanks for joining us, guys. Not only that, the Self-Reliance Festival, we're not going to have random things set up where you get some little sampling where a guy put some tomatoes in a bucket. You're going to come here and actually see the last 6 years of progress, and you're going to see what worked and what didn't work. You're coming to a private property where we actually do all of this stuff. Yep. Awesome. Awesome, guys. Have a good one. See ya.